How many concussions did it take before you decided that money was a safer sport?
Not enough, and I think I've only had like 3 documented concussions, but I probably had about 100 more than that. And I had loved when you had posed that, because it's like, that's what people think of, right? That's what we think of. And for me, without having those concussions or going through that journey, then the money situation that I deal with now wouldn't be where it's at either.
Can you feel the long-term effects of those concussions? Because I know people talk about CT and all that there, but you don't really see those signs until they come. Do you feel the concussion impact now at all?
There'll be days where I'm in a fog all day long. Like, literally can't remember anything. Everything looks foggy, feels foggy, right? That's not a normal person, right? So I pick up on that, understand that. We understand that because the concussions are hitting our head all the time, like our emotions are different. However, as long as you can communicate and talk and figure these things out with somebody, you can minimize those situations. Now, everyone's like, well, why the hell would you play football if that's the outcome that's going to happen? What we don't talk about is wrestling, soccer, basketball. Those all have a lot of concussions too. Actually, soccer has one of the leading concussions because of the ball hitting people's head. Now, is it as severe? Are you going to see, a soccer player knocked out laying on the ground, what we call sleeping in football? No, but those add up. And that's when I say I have 3 documented, because back in my day, documentation was different. But now, like, the definition of a concussion is, did you hit your head and do you feel a little woozy? It's technically a concussion. Well, yeah, every time I hit my head, right? So that's where that goes.
Explain a little bit what you do, because I know people are just going to be looking at you and hearing your bio, and they're going to think of the same TV show I said to you when I first met you. Ballers is what they're going to think about. How similar is the lines? What is it that you do?
Very much similar, except for predominantly more of my clients are women, LGBTQ minority business owners, with that complexity. So we'll use Ballers as an example for it, right? So he's flying around the country trying to create deals, whether it's the stadium, whether it's moving their money, taking care of their family, making sure all the moving parts behind the athlete is happening. That's what we do, right? So think about us as your right hand. You need to set up travel, done. Bill pay, done. Your bookkeeping, your taxes. When you have a question about, should I be making this decision? Yes, no, like, that's our job. And we call that modern family office, right? So the ultra wealthy people in the world all have a family office. They have a team of experts that are attorneys, lenders, bookkeepers, travel agents, even, nannies, etc., to support everything they do in life. So all they have to do is whatever they do for work and what they love to do, and that's be with their family. We do that exact same scenario when it comes to money. And everyone's going to ask right now, listening to this, like, that's pretty vague, Stoy. Like, what the hell does it actually mean? And it's tough to answer because everybody's situation is different, right? So for you, you might need us to take care of your taxes and your bookkeeping. For others, it might be, we need to help run their business and be the operations inside their business. For others, it might just be, hey, just take care of my investments, make sure it makes money. So it's being able to do anything we need to for our clients so they can focus on their loved ones.
It's like a financial concierge.
Yeah, that's a great word for it.
It's pretty good, to be fair. To be honest, when you explained it, I could think of so many people that would need one, or genuinely need one, because not even just that they're bad with money. A lot of those people that have the money that need you don't have time. They have zero time.
And that's it. Time's the essence, right? And that's where we step in.
So if you're dealing with money all the time and you're dealing with these people and you're seeing a range of different people, you must have seen a lot in the financial industry, to say the least. Was there anything that when you first stepped in that became apparent it was a myth that you had believed and you were like, my God, I can't believe that was a lie this whole time?
I met a guy whose mom was becoming ill, right? It was the end of her life type situation. And when I met him, her financials were all over the place. It was a mess. And when I first saw it, I was like, okay, I can help with the situation, because there are things happening that you just don't know of. And so I was helping for a couple years over that. Well, mom died, dad died, and then his brother died. So he lost everyone basically from his immediate family. Now he still has 2 kids. The brother had 2 kids and he was married. But while I was going through and digging through, because when you have hundreds and thousands of pages of documents, it takes a long time to kind of like piece it all together when people aren't organized. And so I was doing basically forensic accounting, figuring it all out. And all of a sudden I figure out $4 million is gone. And come to find out, The brother I was working with is the one who took it all and spent it on his infidelity and everything, which led to a divorce, which led to a lawsuit, which led to that money being gone forever, right? Which led to him suing me. So it's like that I never saw happening because I worked with him basically every 3 days, sitting down with him, managing stuff, moving stuff. And if it wasn't for me coming in and questioning and going, the math's not mathing, then that family would have been out even more money. And so that was one of those that taught me a lesson in this money game that I know going forward. Every client I have, I do not want their family involved with their estate. Either I'm going to do it or we're going to hire a third party so that the family can be the family and the people that are dealing with the money can deal with the money and not intertwine those because it gets dirty.
I think Channing Crowder said it best. It was like, whenever you do get money, don't let your family touch the cheese. Give it to them on a plate when they deserve it.
Yeah.
I feel like for someone like you, do you, like, I know you always get an insight into this, like you just said the story, but were you surprised just how many family members are just willing to blow up strong relationships over a bit of money?
Like that happens all the time. Even if you don't have a lot of money, right? I've seen it in my own family when my mom passed and my grandma passed. Like there's little fights over little things. And it doesn't matter how many zeros you have. Like family will turn on each other when it comes to value or money or whatever, if it hasn't been talked about in a core family. But a lot of families aren't that strong, right? Let's be real nowadays. There's not a lot of families out there that are the super strongest and can get through it. Most of them are going to have some type of fight, tiff, or stab each other in the back for this trinket or this amount of money or that car or that land.
I know you mentioned the clientele you kind of work with, and they're put into a box by society, but this was something that came into my head, and it may be a little bit insensitive and things like that, but do you ever feel kind of put in a box being a black man in finance?
Yeah, always have. But I would used to go to, our financial conferences, whatever, and I would be one of like 5 out of 1,000, 3,000, right? You're also obviously put into a box. There's no way around it, right? We would talk about, hey, these are the things that we want to do for our community, or just speak in general about marketing or whatever. And it'd be like, no, that's not compliant, or we can't do it that way. Like, why can't we? Someone else is doing it over here. It's just a white dude doing it, but he's doing it. Why can't we do it? Right. And it's one of those things that we fight all the time. That's why I'm so loud for others. That's why I have my collective. That's why, I try to support as much as possible, because our voices should be louder, because we're ending up being the majority. Right. So like I said, women, LGBTQ, and minorities are my demographic that I work with the most. That makes up majority of the people, if you look at it, and will make up the majority the older we get. So why aren't the majority being able to be represented and talked about? Why is it just always that, old balding white guy? I don't know, but finances need to change, in my opinion.
Do you think the stereotypes will ever run out of the finance industry, or do you think they're kind of there for generations?
I can't speak to other countries, but I will speak to mine for sure. No, we will always have old, rich, white people running it. There will always be racism. There will always be all of those things. I think it will improve and get better, but it will never not be a part of our culture and our society. It's just not possible.
Were you surprised how financially illiterate people are?
No one has their shit together. There's not one person on this earth that truly has everything in line. They're all trying to figure it out. Even your most wealthy, they don't know what's going on. They don't know all of the moving parts of their stuff, right? And that whittles down to all of us who don't have the money to make up for those mistakes, right? Our ultra wealthy can do that because they can make up for that mistake because they have enough assets. The rest of us can't. But we always try to do it ourselves, which makes no sense, because money is the one thing on this earth that you can't do alone. It's not possible, because you have a full-time job. Unless you're in the money game, then it's your full-time job. But if not, there's too many emotions and there's too many moving parts to deal with how your money is affected, that being illiterate or less education is going to hurt you drastically. And we see that every day, and we continue to see that.
So I want to look at this on two different sides. First, like the people that are outside of athletics, do you think we could benefit from teaching financial literacy as a subject? Maybe not in like the younger schools, but as they get older, colleges and the very end of high schools.
I think financial literacy should be K through secondary education. Shouldn't stop. It should start that young. We started our boys as young as possible. I think they were 3 or 4 because it's just a baseline of understanding it, right? The older you get, the more complex. But how many of us coming out of high school or college knew what taxes were or how to even file taxes or what a loan actually was, right? Most of us have student loans and we're in debt out our ass. Like it is what it is, but you didn't know what that meant. You don't know what it means to save over a long period of time because you always live day to day because you were young. Like all of that should be taught at a very young age because then it's just ingrained into who you are as opposed to like trying to learn when you're an adult because it's sometimes too little too late.
Yeah, I remember leaving school and getting like a low job, a normal job, but getting my first paycheck, and I had no idea who these people were that was taking my money. Like I looked at it and was like, "What is this?" And then when I moved out, having these little things you have to pay for, and how you have to pay little bits extra into taxes and stuff. I had no idea any of this stuff, and it's like so weird to me how like I know like the education system has to be trying to implement it. Like it'd be stupid not to, but it blows my mind how it never became an actual subject. Like I think something like that would have been way more beneficial than doing maths in school. Because at least you would have been prepared for it. Because this is something that does put people on the ground a little bit.
It does. I mean, I remember dissecting frogs and sharks. What the hell did I need to do that for? I mean, balancing a budget would have been way better for me, right? Now, granted, I know like certain people are going to be doctors and all of that stuff. That's fine. But like everyone should have to go through this because all of us deal with money and it's guaranteed in life. There's no way around it. And I always use that analogy because it's like, it's true. Like everything we touch, everyone in everyday life deals with some type of money. So why are we avoiding it? I think it has more to do with just overall control and lack of ability to teach people correctly. And that's kind of where we're at with our education system.
Let's stay on the same question, but look at the other side with the athletes. Because I had this idea a while ago when I saw someone talking about it on Instagram recently. Do you think it would be beneficial for athletes to do a mandatory financial literacy, even one class before they actually got their signing bonus?
Absolutely. The NFL does it. I'm not sure the other leagues do or not, but the NFL has like a rookie symposium that they go through this. Right. There are a few former athletes that actually go around to each team for the rookies to teach them specifically about money. So I know it's our requirement at NFL. The NBA probably needs to instill it because it seems like they blow money more than anyone else. And I don't get me started on the Premier League guys. They blow money out the ass. But I think it should be. I know the NFL is doing it. However, the problem isn't necessarily them learning. It's who's on their team to help them, right? Because their job is to what? Be an athlete. That's how they make their money. Their job is to not be, the gatekeeper away from their family coming to ask for money, their friends coming to ask for money, all the charities in the world coming to ask for money, those vultures that are saying, hey, invest in this with me, and it end up being a crock of shit, right? Like they need to learn the basics of it, but they also need to learn how to put together a great team to support them. That team, i.e., a family office type situation, because what we see the most with athletes is their families eat it all up. They blow it on really, really ignorant things. And then their friends come and snipe it up from them as well. Fourth being a divorce, obviously. But those three are the main ones that we see.
Let's play a little game then. Let's see how you would advise this NFL athlete that we saw today. Tyreek Hill and his major divorce settlement. Now, this is a little bit extreme to me because I feel like the world didn't really know this was going on to this extent. But his ex-wife has secured a 500K lump sum of money, 20 to 50K monthly in spending money, 100K for a new car, 450,000 in legal fees, and an exclusive use of his $5.5 million mansion. Go on, give Mr. Tyreek Hill some financial advice.
You should have got a prenup. I think all athletes should, whether that is a prenup or there's a post-nup too, right? So obviously I met my wife in college, but if I would have went pro, I would have tried to get a post-nup, meaning, hey, I know I'm going to be an athlete. Let's draw a line here and agree to things now before we even know what the future is going to look like. So athletes, you got to do pre or post, in my opinion. The other side of it is like, depending on whatever that may look like, just be yourself and don't be a douchebag ultimately. Because my gut thing is he flaunted a lot, probably cheated on her. I haven't read into their relationship of what the divorce was for, but all of those things are coming to a head. So you also have to just be yourself and don't get a big head. Ultimately, third thing, pick the right woman. Two, there's a lot of gold diggers out there. Let's be real. You got to do all of those things to protect yourself as best as you can.
Do you think if you did make it to the NFL, you'd be as passionate as you are about financial education?
I do. And the reason for this is this stems from my childhood. I also worked at the Boys and Girls Club on my campus for 4.5 years, learning all of this and figuring out that we have a societal problem. I almost guarantee that, yeah, I would have, but then I would have had the money to make greater change, in my opinion. So all of that happened before I would even got to the draft stage. And it was already drilled into me. I just now, instead of focusing on bettering my body, I focus on bettering my mind to make change. So I think it would have. I don't know how fast where I'd be now, but I know that it'd definitely be part of what I do on the side.
Something that has kind of been bugging me for a while is like how invested we are in money as a whole, just in general as a population. And it seems to be like everybody seems to think it controls the world, things like that. Well, especially it controls how they feel and stuff like that. But do you think that chasing wealth has become an addiction?
I don't think chasing wealth is. I think chasing money is, and they're different. Wealth, for me, the definition of wealth is being able to be happy, live life how you want to, and give back to others, right? That doesn't follow a necessarily dollar perspective. What everyone's chasing right now is money. How many zeros I can get in my bank account to make me able to be wealthy. And the most wealthy people I've ever seen in my life were when we went to Tanzania and played a football game down there, was they were the most wealthy people ever because they were happy. They were loving everyone. They had a sense of community, and the women were sweeping mud floors. Okay. They were wealthy, in my opinion, and they were very, very happy. People in Tanzania do not have anywhere amount of money as we do, right? We know that, but they live with what they have and they make the means and make do. Others don't. We try to get as much zeros as possible, which makes us narcissistic, cut corners, ruin relationships, all to chase the dollar. And then at the end of the day, those people that do that are left with nothing because they don't have people. They can give back, but they're only doing it for tax purposes. Their families are usually ruined, right? What does that get you at the end of the day? Is that true wealth? Not in my opinion.
Over 50% of millionaires are severely depressed. And I thought that was insane because of how many people now are so confined in their own mind to become millionaires because they think it's going to make them happy. But I wanted to ask you this because you've seen it in all different angles and you've seen the insides of it. If money is supposed to buy us happiness, why are rich people so sad?
All money does is exponentially increases whatever you are and your feelings are. That's it. That's all it does. So the more zeros you have, and if you're sad now, more depressed you come. If you're narcissistic now, just more narcissistic you come. If you're angry and mad about something, somebody, you just get more. All it does is increase those feelings. And that's where our society and money has gotten it wrong for so long in this industry is we've always been told, and I'm sure you've heard this, separate your emotions from financial decisions. Separate them. You can't. We're humans. Every decision we make is based upon some type of emotion. But if you could understand your relationship with money, understand why you feel a certain way when certain things happen, then you can align those two together. And when you get more zeros, those decisions are now who you are and not that fake person that you are being currently. And so that's why you see 50% of millionaires are depressed and don't have much. That's what's going on. And to those people, by the way, that want to be a millionaire, stop saying you want to be a millionaire because it's just a number and that's irrelevant to your life. It doesn't change anything if you're called a millionaire, guaranteed it. Nothing is going to change in your life because you are worth $1 million at this point. It won't. It just exacerbates whatever problems you have in your life.
You played football for a long time and at a very good level to a very, really good standard. And I mean, you're around so many different characters, so many different talents, levels, and abilities, and things like that. What habits have you held on to that carried from the field to the boardroom?
The most important one is the love for the journey to the end. Okay. So as a collegiate athlete, we would train for 8.5 months, practices at 6 a.m., running, lifting, everything for 8.5 months. to then play for, 3.5 months or 11 games, 11 opportunities. And in those 11, they're not even guaranteed themselves, right? Because you could be hurt. Someone's better than you, right? You name the situations. So you got to think about that. We wake up at 5 in the morning for 8.5 months straight to have the opportunity to play this game 11 times, and it's not guaranteed. In life, we have 12 months out of the year that we are trying to do our best and train for those opportunities to come up. The thing in life, though, is those opportunities aren't in the fall season. They come up whenever. And so you always have to be ready for those opportunities. So the grind in the journey is the most important thing that I've taken from my athletic background, is that you've got to love to grind, do the grit, do the hard things over and over and over again for that opportunity to make that play, whatever it might be. Because if you don't prepare, you're out of shape, you're not ready, those opportunities will blow right past you and you may never see them again.
You can tell in like the passion you speak that you have carried the competitiveness into whatever you're doing now. And that's something that I think athletes that lose the sport maybe too early or they have to retire and I think that's the thing they struggle with the most is like having competition every day and then just having to sit on the couch and do nothing. But how did you manage to feed that skill, like maintain it?
I blew out my Achilles my 5th year, my senior year. And the first initial thing is just depression for like 2 years. I turned to golf to start because it was like an individual sport, right? And it was the most frustrating damn thing in the world. But I love that sport. It took me, see, I tore my Achilles in 2011. It probably took me till 2014 when I had my first kid to really get back to that competitive former self or part of my former self. And now as I look back on like what drives that, it's more so I'm doing it to teach my kids and I'm using content. My podcast brings more out of it for me than my everyday job does, right? And the reason for that is because if I can show my passion, help people grind through things and step by step do it by just my voice, I feel like I am doing it for more people. And I was a captain on the football team. I've always been super selfless. Like I want to help everyone else before myself. And that's what being able to do content creation, come on your podcast, help my clients out does for me. And that's what drives me every day now. But it takes a while. It did not happen overnight. And some of these guys I've had 3 teammates commit suicide. Sometimes it never gets back out. And that is something that needs to be talked about and discussed more too. We talk a lot about it in America about our military and our veterans, 22 a day commit suicide. We don't track athletic, collegiate athlete numbers. I would say it's probably just as high because it's that same loss. You lose your team, you lose your ability to know what's going on, and you lose your competitiveness and you don't know where or what to do.
How did you get through that identity crisis?
Luckily enough, I had a wife who went through it too, and really, really good teammates. And I went to see a therapist. Those 3 things really got me through it, got them through it as well. And I was lucky enough just to have the right people around me at the right time.
How did you get yourself to the point though where you would let people help you? Because in football, it is very much, the figure it out type of mentality. How did you adapt yourself to let people help you?
I was really forced into it. I had no other options, right? I got so down that I couldn't figure it out. There was no answers anymore. There's nothing I could physically do anymore. I was sitting there, my head hurting, not moving, not doing anything. And there was no other option, right? I wasn't going to commit suicide like some of my teammates. So the honest thing you can do is seek help, right? And so that's what I did at that point because there was no other options for me.
I know you've mentioned obviously the collegiate athletes that don't make it to the pros and the depression rate and stuff. And I'd imagine athletes themselves do have a bad one too. But we always hear of the athlete that does get through a full career and then retires and they go broke within like 5 years or something. Is all these like these problems, these things that do build in the ex-athlete, are they to do with losing that sense of purpose?
Almost always. The sense of purpose, and we're going back to that power thing, right? When you're playing, specifically for pros, when you're playing, you're getting paid, it's happening, right? You have the paycheck, you have the glam, the fame, and all of that. When you retire, it doesn't matter who you are, it's not to that level anymore, right? Because you're not playing, you're not in the news and all that. So you have this massive drop off. And if you haven't set things up during your playing career and that's gone, what do? Well, you try to flaunt it, right? And you try to spend the money, you try to be in the news, you try to do all these things to gain that feeling that you had when you were playing. And that's what we see a lot of. I mean, there's so many stories of, pro athletes going broke very shortly afterwards. It's because they never did anything right the first time while they were playing and got money. And then they dove off a cliff because they lost that fame, because they thought that that fame was who they are, as opposed to their ability got them to that fame. And that's what's pretty sad about athletics overall.
When I was doing some prepping, I noticed something about the way you speak, and you very rarely talk in technical terms or like especially the big financial words. And it got me thinking about something in general. Is the whole money management and money making, is it more about numbers or psychology?
Psychology, 99% of it's psychology. The numbers are the numbers. They'll do what they need to do. And I love the question because when we come down to numbers, right? Our taxes, our retirement, you name it, savings, etc. That's just a numbers game, right? I could set all of that up all day long. The thing is, you won't follow through with that plan, or you might not be able to do that plan because your psychology is off. Your money mindset's not right. So we could create the biggest plan, greatest plan in the world. Most people won't fall through with it because they don't have the psychology right. And that is the most important thing. And that's why I said earlier, our emotions and money are tied together. You need to know who you are, your purpose, your dreams, your goals, and align that with the money to be able to get to where you want to be. And so it's all psychology. And we're seeing that more and more in our industry. You're seeing a lot of behavioral therapists come out, and majority of what we learn on the CFP board now is psychology. All I speak about mostly is psychology, like you picked up, and that's what's going to drive the needle for anybody.
I always do think though that anybody that is in a top position in any industry, like someone like yourself, they are almost experts in human nature. Like they know everything about how people think and stuff like that. And there's one specific one that I want to try and lean on you and steal from you, which is anybody hears finance, they're automatically thinking get rich as quick as possible. I know everybody who clicked on this was thinking the exact same thing, but you spoke about it so many times. You can tell by the way you've set it up. You're not in that game at all. You want it long term. How can you convince someone who's got money now to focus on the long term instead of the short term of get as much of this now as I can?
That is the hardest thing to do, right? That is the hardest thing to overcome because our society loves this like get rich quick stuff. Like I'm gonna win the lottery, or I'm gonna put it in this coin, or I'm gonna put it in this stock, and I'm a billionaire. The problem with that is you've never done anything in your life that way. Nothing. We didn't learn to walk out of the womb, right? We didn't learn to talk. We went to school for how many years before you're an adult, right? We're all learning every day, and it is a lifelong journey. And so your wealth is the same way. It is a lifelong journey. It will never end. Even if you got to your goal, we'll say everyone wants to be a millionaire. Even when you got to a million, you still continue life. There's still life. You don't just stop. You're not dead. And then once you get more money, there's more complexity. When there's more complexity, there's more risk. When there's more risk, there's more things that can happen. There's more stressors. There's more things that have this whole thing crumble if you don't do it right. So it's not one of those things that, all of a sudden I get money and all my answers or my problems are answered. You actually have more problems that are even more severe that could lead to more issues. And people don't recognize that, mainly because the rich people don't talk about it, right? They love to flaunt whatever they have. I got this yacht, I'd fly here, I fly there. They don't talk about all of the risks that they're taking to support the life that they are living, right? Yeah, cool. They have a yacht. That's fantastic. They have to employ that yacht. They have to have liability on that yacht. It also needs to be paid for while it sits there, operates. What if one of the crew members dies? What if it crashes? That's just one little piece of a yacht. You have all these assets, those things come. And that's what people don't understand is they do not understand the complexity of all of it and that it continues to grow throughout life. It truly does not get easier the more money you have.
I like the way you mentioned you never do anything quick in life in general, and it brings me on to a point that I had because in football, you as a linebacker anyway had to study the playbook. You had to know it inside out. In financial industry, you need to know the legislation, the tax code, all that stuff. Which one has more trick plays on it?
It's the damn tax code and legislation because it changes all the time, right? In football, there's only base formations. There's only so much things that can go on. Like it's a finite thing. You can see it. Our tax code and legislation changes. It feels like every 3 to 4 months, something new's popped up, right? Or something new's going to pop up. And it is so infuriating because we can create plans, kind of like what we're doing right now. We've created plans for 2025 that because of our new tax code coming out, we have to redo all of those plans. Guess what's going to happen the next election? It's going to flip again. It's going to change. And that's on the federal level. You go down to the state level, things change every year. And it's just those ever giving like new things. And it's not like the same playbook. It's not, you know, this tax is 5%, but when this changes, it's going to go to 6. No, it's like it changes from 5%, changes up the entire tax code. Some of it goes to 6%, some of it goes to 12, one goes to 1, and you have to fix and mix and choose this thing. And it's one of the most infuriating things that we have to deal with is the legislative stuff, but also the tax code because it changes and it really, at the end of the day, doesn't make any sense to anybody.
What's the most ridiculous thing you've seen someone try and write off?
There's a lot, but the most ridiculous one that I think everyone will like understand, like you just can't do, was we had this guy who had some young kids and had a really good year financially. So he put in $100,000 pool. He built a race car track and had all the ATVs and stuff for it. I think a total is like $300,000. Without asking anybody, by the way, he did this and said, okay, cool, I want to write it all off. Where do you think an in-ground pool at your home, a race car track, and all those toys are a write-off for you? What does that have to do with your business? Well, I just thought because, it could be a business expense. I operate my business out of my home. Congratulations. You can't write that off. Your business and his business was, we'll just not tell it what it is, but he was selling widgets. It was not racetrack. It was not, ATVs. It was not a pool business. Come on, bud. Let's try a little differently here.
People who are like got a lot of money, they do talk all the time about write-offs and I can write this off. They always brag about it. Are they always trying to get just a little bit more written off that it just doesn't make sense?
So many loopholes in the tax code that you can take advantage of if you're a business owner specifically. Like the system is designed to try to rig the game. Makes no sense to me, right? But yeah, you always see them like trying to get the most out of it as possible, right? Name it, whatever write-off it is, whether it's travel or this or that. It used to be where like a lot of us would wear suits and ties and we try to write off our clothes because it's a business attire, right? Where that doesn't work for us. You can't really do that. So you see those all the time. And it's just like at the end of the day, I ask people like, are we really trying to avoid our taxes? Or are we trying to plan for the best thing for you and your family? Okay. If we focus on that, sometimes we're going to have to pay a little more in taxes. So be it. Granted, some of our taxes go in places we'll never see again, but also some of our taxes go to upkeep our roads, our fire departments, our police departments. You know what I mean? Like there's good in it, but you can't try to avoid it all the time because at the end of the day, if you get it wrong, there is prison time attached to it. There are huge penalties tied to it. And so let's not try to blow up your entire life to save the $10,000, $100,000 in taxes you might owe.
There's some ancient philosopher, I'm sure people call me stupid on TikTok for not knowing his name, but he says that we learn the most through embarrassing ourselves. And I want to know this from you because you're in an industry it's quite easy to embarrass yourselves. Have you had any embarrassing financial mistakes in your day?
Yeah. We learn from our failures, right? I actually have two and they kind of coincide together. Wrong business partner, right? Who ended up costing me like $90,000 to buy him out. So there was a $90,000 investment I wasn't ready for. Same business partner got me into an investment that because he was the CFO for, I just trusted him. And here you go. Here's, I think it was 85 or 100 grand. Here you go. I trust you. Get it done. Make it work. And there was another loss. So like in a matter of like 18, 24 months, it's like almost 200 grand. Just gone because I didn't do my due diligence and vet out each project or each scenario like I do for my clients, right? And that's where like, yeah, I'm an idiot. Embarrassed to say it. But I used that failure to now build out the process. So when my clients are in those situations, I've already got a due diligence checklist and can figure out exactly what needs to be done and tell my client, that's a terrible idea. Or if we're going to do that idea, we're going to build in this scenario so you have an out. And that's kind of where I learned really to dive through into any type of investment, right? Into other businesses, into stocks, it doesn't matter. We're going to do our due diligence because Stoy fucked up.
So I've got one last question for you, and it's not really money related, to be honest. We've talked a lot about money, and people, I think the main thing I was trying to get people to learn about money was that it's more about in your brain than numbers, and you've done it perfectly, which is the reason I want you on. But I came across your Substack today, and I read a funny story about you saying taking your kids to football practice and you wanted to pull on the pads and just hit someone one time just to see what it was like again. And you've talked about football and your experiences, and you can tell you still hold them with a lot of passion. Do you miss it?
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Do I miss running a lot? No, not necessarily. But I miss the pain. I miss the sweat. I miss being able to just go to battle with my brothers side by side for an ultimate end goal. I miss that competitiveness, the ability to literally punch someone in the mouth legally and not have to worry about consequences. And ultimately, I miss the brotherhood that you have because you're going through so much together. The real world doesn't really have that. You can't duplicate that. Even in the best businesses and the best culture, it's not duplicatable. And that's why I do this analogy, and luckily I've not had any veteran yell at me yet, but the military and specifically college football are very close because of that same exact bond. Their squad, their platoon are doing the same thing. They're training together, they're bleeding together. Granted, they actually go to war and try to kill people. We go to, football and try to kill each other, but no one dies, right? But it's very similar in regards to everything I just laid out, and everyone misses it. If we could strap on today, I absolutely would, right? Just like all the vets, they say, hey, war breaks out, I'm back in. That'll never go away. Physically, we might be a little slower, a little low, worse off. But to the day I die, I will always think mentally like, yeah, any day I could put it back on and get out there.
How do you translate those emotions into your business?
Whew. It's really difficult because in business, I can't scream at everybody, right? I can do up downs. I can't have them bleed and go through the grind. My job is to make sure that they don't have to go through that as much, right? But I do that by speaking about it, by going through the stories, by explaining to them how each process is going to go and how long it takes, right? I can't fix your situation in a month. Your situation is going to take us 3 years, right? And just being as super transparent and blunt and honest as possible. And I use that as kind of that slap to the face of like, wake up, okay, get out of your own head. Your situation is this is what it is. And this is what it's going to take us to get to where you want to be. And it's going to suck. And there's going to be losses. There's going to be wins. There's going to be pain. But at the end of the day, we're going to make it. And this is how we'll do it.
Where can people find you, Stoy? What have you got going on and what's coming in the future?
Yeah. You can find me everywhere. I'm on every social media platform except for Reddit because I got kicked off that one. But you can look up Stoy Hall. You can look up Black Mammoth. You can look No BS Wealth. You can go all over. We're all over the place there, except for my personal TikTok got stolen. So we got to kind of deal with that one. But you'll find me out there. I'm out there. What we got going on, I don't know when this episode's coming out, but today is the 3rd of September. And today we just launched our No BS Wealth collective. So we have a No BS Wealth collective of badass people that we bring on, that we have vetted out, that we know personally, that are here to dive deeper into this wealth conversation, dive deeper into your life situation, and leave you with actionable steps that you can instill today and not have to hire somebody or go down the path, right? You're able to take it from our podcast every day. And so that's our biggest launch that we have right now. So tune into us, reach out. I say this as a guest, but also as a host at the same time. We as content creators can only provide what you give us feedback and engage with. If you want to know something, let us know. If you want to talk about it, engage with us, right? That communication allows us to do better at our jobs and provide you with what you want.